104.7 The Cave, KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Now, it's time for Ned Talk.
Yep, here we are on a rainy Sunday afternoon and talking sports. It's Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show. I'm Joe Westen, joined by Ned Reynolds and Josh Roberts today. How are you guys doing?
Beautiful day in the Ozarks today. I hope it doesn't rain too long because we have a baseball game to televise tonight. So we need to get that one in there.
Who are the Springfield Cardinals playing tonight?
Northwest Arkansas. This is the concluding game of their series, and Northwest Arkansas is not very good.
Okay. All right.
So we want to get that one in.
Yeah, and Josh Roberts.
Had the record a little bit. Yeah.
Josh Roberts with us. Josh, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you again. 2 days in a row. I feel very privileged.
Yeah, yesterday Josh was on with me with Cullen Bunn, and we talked about Tremendicon, which is coming up in July. It's a convention, and we'll talk a little bit about that during the show today. And I've got a pair of tickets to give away to Tremendicon a little bit later on.
Which is
fantastic.
Being held where?
Oasis Convention Center. Yeah. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. We've got our own event happening in July, too, that was announced this week. It is the Chiefs Happy Hour, July 18th, new location this year, Dive on Patton Street. And, Ned, I'll let you take over from here and talk about just what the event entails and how it looks and what people can expect.
Well, it's always a good time. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Mitch Holdus is down here, and Mitch is your quintessential broadcaster. He does everything. He gets the crowd completely involved in this thing. We had Danon Hughes with us last year, and he's planning on being back again. Also a brilliant color commentator and a guy who knows football, like All-America at Iowa, and then with several of the pro football teams, with the Chiefs, of course, and he bleeds that Chiefs red. Of course, I guess we all bleed the Chiefs red. But be that as it may, the evening consists, of course, food that's available for us. This is a new locale. I'm not really familiar with it too much. Is it the old Patton Alley? Is that what that is?
I believe so. I'll be honest with you. I'm not familiar with it either. I'll try to look it up while we're talking here.
But regardless of that, Mitch will get up and start these ceremonies. Mike the intern will be there. I'll be there. We've had Art Haynes in the past, but I think it's unlikely that he's there this year. However, you never say never.
Never count Art out.
And what we do is Mitch and Danon, we question them. We throw questions at them about the Chiefs, and Mitch is an expert at taking one question and making about a 10 or 15-minute answer.
Right.
But it's a good time. We do invite the audience participation. I'm not going to predict that he'll be there. He will. Mitch will be there. But in past years, the governor of Missouri has been there. He's a big Chiefs fan. Governor Parson has come down and been a part of all the it's just a really good time. And, yeah, we urge you to be there.
Do you think that Chiefs super fan will show up, the one that the FBI is looking for?
I doubt very much that he does, and I wonder if anybody's going to find him because he is on the run.
Yeah.
Nobody's got it. He escaped from, I think, a jail in Oklahoma is where they had him incarcerated, but it was a minimum incarceration. And then they discovered, wait a minute, he had passed some bad checks, I think is what it was. But there's a little bit more to it than that. And he decided, I better get out of Dodge while I can here.
Well, I heard that he was allegedly robbing banks to pay for...
That was another one.
Yeah,
to pay for his season tickets.
That's another Chief super fan?
No, this is the same one.
Same one. Okay.
Was he doing it to pay for his season tickets?
No, he was doing it to pay for the trips that he was going to see the Chiefs play in.
Oh, wow.
And the incident happened, Josh, last year, and he was on his way to... Did they play in Houston last year?
Don't remember.
It was in Texas somewhere they played, or whatever the case. They were in the South, and he was on his way there, and I guess he got stopped for a minor traffic violation or whatever. And they looked at, wait a minute, what is this? You're the guy, he robbed a bank in Oklahoma, and he was on the run.
Wearing all his Chief stuff when he went in there.
And he's wearing this. This is Chief Superfan. Good Lord.
Anyway, that's all awesome. Aside, we don't think he's going to be there, but it will be Mitch. It will be Danon. It will be Ned Reynolds. Ned is the, I would call you the slow pitch softball pitcher for this because you throw these softballs up for Mitch, and he just knocks them out of the park.
Let's put it this way. The questions are not ultimately challenging.
But it's fun. It is a lot of fun. I can't tell you how much a good time that these are.
It is fun.
I've been to almost every one. I didn't get a chance to go last year. It always falls right around my son's birthday, and last year it fell right on, so I couldn't go. But this year I'm excited. It's July 18th. It's not on his birthday, and so I'm going. I'm really excited.
What day of the week is the 18th?
Yeah, you keep asking me questions I don't have the answer to. Let me look here.
I have told several people that here's how I describe Mitch Holtis. He is entertainingly verbose.
That's a Tuesday.
Tuesday
night.
And it'll start probably about 5:30, 6 o'clock, somewhere in that vicinity. And it's, again, what's the name of the venue?
It is called The Dive on Patton. It is on Patton Street, downtown Springfield. So, great location. It's been there for a while. I believe it was called Patton Street Pub at one time, or Patton Alley Pub.
Patton Alley Pub, yeah.
Now it's called The Dive on Patton, and we'll be out there with Mitch and Danon, and it should be a really, really good time. It always is. It's a lot of fun, and if you're not ready for some football after you leave there, you will be ready for some football. Mitch will get you.
Oh yeah,
like you're ready to run through a wall for the Chiefs.
Even he has to make the trip down from. I think he lives in Silver Lake, if I'm not mistaken. But he has to drive from Kansas, which is no big deal. He's accustomed to that. But when he gets there and finishes, he's pretty tired. But he's never ever too tired to lead the whole crowd and touchdown.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they go nuts when they hear that.
Since I missed it last year, what did Danon bring to the table?
The intricacies of what goes on in the locker room and how players think. Now, Mitch can't do that because he's a broadcaster, but Danon Hughes can, and he is really, really skilled at doing that. Danon is a professional. He is a banker by profession, or a financier of some sort. But he also is a broadcaster because he comes down here and does the Missouri Valley Conference games for the Bears, and both in football and in basketball. And then with the Chiefs, he's on every Sunday, and he is your quintessential. He replaces Lenny Dawson, and he's every bit as good as Lenny ever was on these things in dissecting the plays and understanding what's going on. And he's just that level of mindset that he can do it.
That's great.
He is phenomenal when you listen to the games. I mean, he grew into the spot. I can tell you that. He didn't start out as good as Len Dawson, but he grew into the spot, and he owns it now. And I love listening to Mitch and Danon do the Kansas City Chiefs games, which, of course, you can hear right here on your home for the Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs, 104.7 The Cave, and you're listening to Ned Talk, our local live sports talk show. If you want to find out more information about the event or how to buy a table or tickets or whatever, you can look that up on our website at 1047thecave.com. All the information is right there in one easy-to-use web page for you to do everything that you need to do, times, dates, locations, everything, all in one spot. We'd love to see you out there. This is one of our biggest events of the year, and it's always a great time. I can't tell you that enough. I think the guys here know that I'm not a Chiefs homer, but I love this event. It's one of my favorite things to go to.
Well, it is the Chiefs. It's oriented toward them, but it's football in general is what we talk about.
Yeah, and getting that insight from those guys is always fascinating to be able. I've always taken something away from the event that I didn't think of before that I wouldn't have gotten had I not been there.
Sure.
So it's a lot of fun to listen to.
That's what it's about.
So one of the questions I suppose maybe you might ask is how's it going to feel for the Chiefs this year to line up against the Broncos and look across the line and see Frank Clark there?
If he's not in jail.
Keep in mind now, this is a profession, Joe, and that's how they view this thing. And even though he has a number of friends on the Chiefs who apparently wanted him to return, and it didn't happen, hey, that goes right out the window. You're the enemy now. You're playing for the Denver Broncos. You're wearing the blue and the orange and all this sort of thing. So, no, you're on that enemy list. I find it extremely interesting that Coach Payton signed him. And this is a little gamesmanship on his part. Now, Clark is 29. I think there's probably some thought that he doesn't have what he used to, and that would be perfectly understandable.
Yeah, you get washed up at 29.
Yeah,
it's just downhill after that.
Well, but Sean Payton said, you know what, we've got a chance to get this guy from the Super Bowl champions. His presence just might help because he can give us a little insight into how that Chiefs locker room works, and he can be a very strong part of our defensive line, maybe not for every game. Clark didn't play every game for the Chiefs, but he can be there in the key moments. I thought it was a brilliant move on his part. Brilliant.
Yeah, a good signing for the Denver Broncos, and the Chiefs I think the Chiefs will miss him, but I'm excited this year because second year for Karlaftis, and also they've signed a couple of guys. They've got a couple of guys that they drafted this year, which be interesting to see how all that works out, and some other guys being asked to step up and take lead roles on that defensive line this season.
There are, absolutely. It'll be a key.
It'll be interesting to watch how all of that plays out as the Kansas City Chiefs prepare for the NFL season. The schedule is out. We know all about that. We've got Mitch and Danon line up. Again, that's coming up on July 18th. It's our Chiefs Happy Hour. Ned Reynolds, myself, Josh Roberts, we're all talking sports this morning. We're kind of staying in the world of football as we started out talking about the Chiefs Happy Hour. What were your thoughts on I guess you call it the big NFL news this week, is Dalvin Cook released from the Minnesota Vikings?
I'm really anxious to see where he does end up because he does have, while he has mileage on those tires, he still has some room left. They cut him for salary purposes.
Yeah.
This is a financial boon for the Minnesota Vikings. But Cook can still play. And I suspect he's going to probably sign with a contending team that needs some running back help. I can't see it being the Chiefs, but I can see it being maybe the New York Jets or somebody of that caliber because they could use somebody like that. And maybe the Patriots.
That was the team I was going to ask you about because I saw an article online this week that suggested that both the available players, Hopkins and him, were going to go into the AFC East. Now, maybe one team gets both. Maybe one goes to the Jets and one goes to the Patriots.
Could be.
That's going to be a really tough division this year because I think the Patriots, if they're probably one or two signings away from being a really tough contending football team.
They have to rely on Mac Jones coming back into the scheme of things. Now, he didn't really have a great core of receivers last year and didn't really have a great team to work with. But this is Belichick, and he can take that team and work wonders with it. A DeAndre Hopkins on the Patriots would be a massive plus for them. Massive.
And you pair him with Juju Schuster-Smith, who signed with them this year. And
he is there, yeah.
And you're looking at what a team that potentially catapults themselves into conversation about a playoff team, maybe even possibly a Super Bowl team. And then, of course, Aaron Rodgers goes to the New York Jets. One of those players ends up with the Jets. Josh, what do you think? Does that catapult them into that conversation?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think just adding Aaron Rodgers to the Jets puts them in the conversation. But if they get a top-tier running back or receiver or both, then yeah, I mean, then the only thing that's kind of suspect, I mean, I don't know how their defense did last year, but the Jets, they've been kind of slowly building into a possible playoff contender anyway, and now suddenly if they put a few big names in there, then they're right there. Yeah.
I don't know how significant this was, but remember when they played the Chiefs, it was a much closer game than everybody thought it was going to be.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's been so long since the Jets have been anything but a joke. It's hard for me to think of them as anything else, but, it's all cyclical in the NFL. And their cycle's coming back around, it seems. I mean, except for the Browns. The Browns are never going to win anything again.
However, there is some thought that maybe Hopkins might end up with them.
Yeah, I mean,
you've got Deshaun Watson back there at quarterback, and they're old buddies from Houston days.
I feel like it all depends on who has the most money to put out to entice a player like him. I mean, because there's plenty of contending teams that would love to have him. It's just a matter of if they can afford to have him at the level that he is.
You have that salary cap that figures into the plans of everyone, including the Chiefs, which is why I don't think that Hopkins will sign with them. The Chiefs' salary cap, as of last week, was under their period. What did they call it? The space, their cap space, was under $1 million, and that's right at the bottom of the list.
Sure.
Most of these teams have $10, $15, $20 million to work with, and Kansas City's $600,000. Now, come on. So they've got to be very careful with what they do.
Well, like Alex said a couple of weeks ago, I'll sign for that.
And they don't have their contract worked out with Chris Jones yet. So
right.
That's playing into a lot of this. But I find it interesting that DeAndre Hopkins has not signed anywhere yet. He seems to be waiting a little bit, and maybe that's to give a team like the Chiefs or somebody else to make room on their salary cap so that they can try to sign him and fit him in.
What it is. That's exactly what it is.
We have some Chiefs news to talk about. We do sad Chiefs news. Norma Hunt passed away this week, the wife of Chiefs founder Lamar Hunt. They were married in 1964. She passed away at the age of 85. I don't know if you ever had a chance to meet her or were around her at all, Dad?
Did not know, but I do know that she was your quintessential first lady of football and had attended, I think I'm right on this, every single Super Bowl.
Wow.
She'd been to every one of the games.
That's awesome.
That really says something for dedication and so forth, including, of course, the Chiefs' most recent Super Bowl win. But she lived a good life and a member of certainly one of the top families in all of athletic ownership.
Yeah, that's right. The Hunt family is very well thought of around the sports world, period. And we send out our prayers and condolences to the Hunt family. Norma Hunt passing away this week at the age of 85. When we come back, we'll talk about some happier stuff. There's some playoffs going on. I'm sure we'll chat about baseball and all that. It's your local live sports talk show, Ned Talk, 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network.
You know what they needed in college baseball is a clock, because let me tell you, these games take forever.
Yeah.
Absolutely forever. It's a typical college baseball game we have on. Alabama, Wake Forest, it's 10-4 in the fourth inning.
Well, Wake Forest offense has been one of the reasons for that, but they do have a clock that I don't know how closely they adhere to it, but the fact remains that it probably does go a little bit slower. But again, the offense and the difference in the level of playing too. And now Wake Forest, keep in mind, guys, that's the number one team in America, and they are really, really good, really good.
Before we get into talking about playoffs, did you see the story about the Phillies and their pitch clock, about how it had some problems, that it wasn't running right? They said not running right, but apparently
the pitch clock was not running right?
It was running a little faster for the other team.
Oh.
Not in
Philadelphia.
No, not the Phillies.
My hometown. No, we would.
That's something that the Astros would do.
Yeah. We got playoffs going on right now, and it's pretty exciting. It is going to the fifth match between the Golden Knights and the Panthers. Josh is our resident hockey expert, and I guess last night's match ended in a brawl.
Yes. So the thing is, last night's game, the Knights got up 3-0 pretty quickly. The Panthers fought back, and it was 3-2 late in the game. They pulled their goalie and then got a penalty, so it was 6-on-4, which is the perfect opportunity to score a goal. And with the time running out, they were trying to jam the puck under the Vegas goalie's pads. It was that close. But typically when you put that much punishment on a goalie, you're going to get punched in the face. And the goalie actually got up and punched one of the Panthers players in the face. And then, it went into a little bit of a Donnybrook, people throwing punches and swinging sticks. And the referees, they did the best that they could do, because those guys are not paid to break up fights. They're paid to separate the players once it's safe for them to do it. But they were doing their best to not let this get out of hand, and it could have gotten a lot worse. But also the fans were throwing water bottles on the ice, which is uncool. You don't like to see that kind of stuff. But it was good. It was a good game. But Vegas looks really strong, and they only need to win one more to win the Stanley Cup.
And that one more might be Tuesday night.
Yeah, because it's going to be in Vegas.
Now, this is their third year of existence, right?
Number three.
Number
yes.
3. And they weren't they in the Stanley Cup the first year?
Yes, they went to the Stanley Cup Finals their first year and lost to Washington, the Washington Capitals. And so here they are back. What you have to understand is hockey has been expanding one team at a time, and when you do an expansion draft, you can only protect a certain number of players on your own team, and then everybody else is available to be drafted away. So when there's just one team doing that, you're basically picking an all-star team from the beginning. Now, you still have to develop the chemistry and camaraderie of these players, and Vegas has done a great job with that. But you get to start off a little bit ahead than like when the Blues became an expansion franchise in the 60s, there were 6 expansion teams. And so the expansion draft there spread the talent out to all 6 of those teams instead of just one. And so that's the difference. That's why the Vegas Golden Knights are so good right out of the bat. That's why the Seattle Kraken were so good right out of the gate as well, because they have that benefit of drafting basically, at worst, the third best player on every team.
Look at the Golden Knights have Pietrangelo from the St. Louis
Blues
on
yeah.
There. So, that I think gives you an example. And, yes, they've been contenders right from the get-go. The Kraken are, too. And Kraken the Kraken made it to, the semifinals?
Yeah, I think they did.
Mm-hmm. They're playing another expansion team, Florida, the Panthers.
Yep.
But that's an expansion team for quite a while.
Yeah,
and so when they expanded, there were multiple teams as well. But, yeah, the Panthers have done really well. It's amazing to me that hockey has done so well in the hot states that it's in, but it is. It's thriving, and it's, you don't have to play it outside, which is good.
The novelty of it, probably a little bit too.
And they've utilized the same philosophy that Vegas is, in that many of the people in the audience are going to be winter birds who have come down to spend some time in there, and you're going to capitalize on that level. Mm-hmm. Furthermore, Miami and that huge area down there is massive, as it is in Las Vegas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oakland's done well. Oakland, they're the Vegas Raiders right now. That'll probably change in 10 years.
Yeah, probably.
They have yet to find their niche in the Las Vegas market yet. But the Golden Knights, they fit right in and have a great following there.
WIN.
Yep, that is
right.
The best deodorant.
Well, and if you look at, I don't know how the marketing is for the Raiders, but the marketing for the Golden Knights is insane. I mean, what they do, they have like a show before every game where the knight skates out onto the ice and they tell the story about the other team being, like some monster he has to slay and everything. I mean, they really put on a show. And then they get celebrity to ring the fire bell or all that stuff. So, I mean, they have put a lot of effort into bringing people into hockey.
Look at the ownership difference. There's the reason why. The Golden Knights are owned by one of the casino owners.
Yeah.
The guy is a West Point graduate and
right.
Obviously very, very bright. The Raiders are based in Las Vegas. Yes, that's true. But they're still owned by our friend from New York days, and my gosh, he and his son, well, of course, he's no longer living now. But
right, the Davis family.
Son, Al Davis's son, who is also maybe as strange as his dad is in running teams.
Well, the haircut.
He's got a great haircut.
He's got the mo there. Went into the barbershop and said, I don't know, choose between the mo or the Pete Rose. I don't know either one of those.
Can you just put a bowl on my head and just kind of shave around it?
Exactly.
Thank you.
There's some rumors, though, that Tom Brady might end up in the ownership group there in Vegas.
Could be.
He's got the money.
Unless he's playing, though, what difference is that going to make?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. John Elway made a big difference when he came into the Denver organization, kind of pushing that.
He was Denver. That's just it.
Right.
He was, the Broncos identified with him. Players did, too. And he probably lent a little bit of expertise down in the field. Brady would do that with the Raiders, but, again, he is Tom Brady.
Let's turn our attention to the other sport that is in the playoff right now, which is the NBA. And so far, that's gone completely Denver's way, except for one game. They have a 3-1 lead. Mm-hmm. Tonight is Game 5. Do you think it ends tonight?
Tomorrow night.
Oh, it's tomorrow night. Sorry. Okay. That's usually they play on Sundays.
Yeah, but with the disparity in scheduling and the fact that they've got to travel back to Las Vegas.
They gave him an extra day.
Sorry about that. I apologize. Okay. Ned,
I think it's
Monday
over.
Night. What do you think? Is it end tomorrow night, Ned?
I do. I thought Denver was the number one team in the NBA all along, and they're a very good team, very solid team. And when you have Jokic in there, he is so tough to handle.
Yeah.
Now, is he going to score every time? Of course not. But is he going to be a pain in everybody's way? all the time he will be. He is in the way. He is disrupting teams. That's not to say they're going to win every game. They may not. They may not win in Denver, but I do think they will. I think the Nuggets will wrap it up. But he also has Jamal Murray, and Murray is a great counterpart to what Jokic is doing. This Denver team's been up top all season long, and here you have the kid from KU coming into the rookie, Christian Brown, and he's doing a great job as well. It's a good blend of talent that they have, but Jokic is the key. He's the one they have to have in there.
Well, what I noticed, because I haven't watched the NBA, but you guys had told me to watch the finals because Jokic is so impressive. And what I noticed is, yes, that dude is impressive. He can almost score at will. He's bigger than anybody that they put up against him as far as matchups. He can shoot three-pointers. But he also pulls the defense away from the other players and sets them up. And he does a great job of getting the ball out to these other players, which is making them better as well. And that's why they dominate as a team, because he's the focal point of every other of the defense, and then that creates for everybody else.
He is an extraordinary passer, too.
Oh,
he
yeah.
has a great floor vision.
There is the answer. Now, what's he had now? 10, it's either 10 or 11 triple-doubles in this playoffs. It's a record for one series, not the record for all of the series. He hadn't been around that long. He'll get that one, too, if he continues. But assists is the key. When he has double-figure assists, which he does in all those triple-doubles, that you can't beat him. He gets underneath there, he gets in that post, and he's looking around, and you have contributed one and sometimes two defenders on him, somebody's free, and he's going to find that person. Frequently, they are cutting to the basket when they're backdoor plays, and they're really good.
And traditionally, with big players like that, you think the triple-double is points, rebounds, and blocks. But his is points, rebounds, and assists, which is amazing.
Correct.
Yeah, I saw a couple of passes that he made in the playoffs, and I mean, it just really threading the needle. Like, he put it right on the money. The guy caught it in stride. If the pass is one way or another, it goes out of bounds or it gets blocked by a defender, but he puts it right in the exact perfect spot. The guy gets it, goes to the basket, scores, and it's just like you said, Josh. He really is the focal point of what the other team's doing on the floor.
Right.
They are paying so much attention to him that he either kills you with the pass or he kills you by scoring, and it's hard to defend a guy that's 7 feet tall and can shoot from the outside and can play underneath.
And can pass over the heads of his defenders. That's the
exactly,
key.
yeah. He's got a different point of view.
His passes, now he'll do some that are the traditional one-handed passes because he is big, but he also takes those big arms of his over top of his head, and he finds those guys coming in. And try that sometime. Those overhead passes, they're tough to do.
Yeah.
This guy can
Well,
do it.
I feel like he has to be a fairly fast player as well, because if they do back off of him, expecting him to pass it, he goes to the basket. You can't stop him. And so he has a great awareness on the court. So, yeah, I mean, he's impressive. He's an impressive player.
He makes quick decisions, which is something that's very important that you see anybody that plays sports. That's something he makes these instinctual decisions that you see with a guy like Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady or baseball players who do the same thing. It's just something that you can't really teach a kid to do. You either have it or you don't, and man, that guy's got it.
Tell you how good he is too, Joe. The defender that Miami has on him is Bam Adebayo, who is really top-notch player.
Yeah,
he's a Kentucky kid, one and done at Kentucky, but he's big and strong, and he's a very astute and bright player. And he is the one who is his challenge is to stop Jokic. And he has had trouble doing that. And Adebayo can stop most people.
Yeah.
That's how good Jokic is.
But I don't think there's anybody that can stop Jokic right now in the NBA or in the world. He's probably the best player in the world right now.
The USA will get their chance when we go into the World Cup, which will start in early July. Early August. That's when they're going to training. And they have exhibition games, one's against Puerto Rico, and another is against Serbia. Jokic. And they play him in, I want to say it's in Madrid, Spain, in an exhibition game, probably late in August sometime. Then the cup competition begins in Manila. This is a heck of a deal.
The
USA's defending champion, as you would expect. These are all NBA guys for the most part. Maybe one or two college stars, but hey, it's pretty good competition.
When we come back, we'll answer this week's question, what's wrong with the St. Louis Cardinals on Ned Talk.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
I tuned away from the college baseball game. We're watching the Mad Hungarian right now. Al Hrabosky, as the Cardinals are doing a little Cardinal recap show. Some highlights. Guess they're having trouble finding highlights these days. Oof. That hurt, huh? Yeah, they're in last place in the weakest division. Well, it's debatable. Either the National League Central or the American League Central, weakest division in baseball. Here's the startling stat for the day to me. Only one team in the National League Central has a positive run differential, and it is the Pittsburgh Pirates, and it is 1. They have outscored the teams that they play by 1 run. Now, on the other side of that, the Cardinals, who are in last place, they have a 0 run differential. But Ned, what's wrong? What's going on?
I just don't think they have a good mix of players. That's not to downgrade the players' skills. They do have that. They have some individuals, some very good. Mike Goldschmidt, Arnado, and come on, Contreras is a good player. But it's not mixed properly. You've got to have that right amalgam of individuals involved. And guys, don't misunderstand. I think Cardinals, I think are going to rally in. What it results, I don't know, because still 11 games under 500 at this juncture is pretty good distance to have to make up. But they don't have, in my opinion, the leader. And they've had leaders in the past. Yadier Molina, a leader. No, he couldn't play anymore. He dogged it down to first base every time he hit an infield grounder, and dogged it into double plays. But he was still a leader in the clubhouse. But who carried them? Think back to last year. Think back. Cardinals were kind of mediocre. They were mediocre for the first part of the season. But who took them after the All-Star break? Albert Pujols put the team on his shoulders, carried them through. He's no longer there as well. They've got to have that leadership ability, and I don't see that with this team. Even with guys like Arnado and Goldschmidt, they're not maybe the vocal leaders that this club needs. Somebody needs to get in there and kick some behind and say, hey, look, we're better than anybody else. Let's go out and prove it.
I think you could look at this and say, too, that Goldschmidt and Arenado are really missing his bat in the lineup because
they could hit around
when you stack those 3 guys in the middle of the order there, then you have to pitch to one of those 3 guys, and now you can kind of pick and choose your poison. And are they missing a bat? Are they missing? Is that what's your opinion, Ned? You've said leadership. You've said. I know off the air we've talked about front office being an issue and maybe managerials being an issue, but is there one place, can you point to the rotation? Can you point to the relievers? Can you point to a veteran bat? What do you think?
Even more than that, the overall consistency of the team. But when you have to boil it down to the middle of the lineup, you've got Goldschmidt and Arnado, they usually bat back-to-back. But the fact is that in the middle of the lineup, they don't have the punch that they used to and drive in the runs. I saw a really interesting stat the other day about them, and I can't articulate the numbers exactly. But when the Cardinals hit 3 or more home runs in a single game, they win something like they've won 13 to 5, I think it is, in games in which they hit 3 or more home runs. In games in which they hit 2 or less, they are like 4-17. They're all right. Does that take away from the home runs? No. But a home run is 1 run. What the Cardinals are not doing is getting runners on base and bringing them in.
Let me ask you about that, because one of the things that I've been frustrated with my baseball team, the New York Yankees, is they play a little bit like a softball team. As long as you're hitting home runs, they're fine. But when you don't, you have to surround those home run hitters with somebody that gets on base, so you're not hitting a bunch of solo shots. You're getting 2 and 3 run home runs, because those are the ones that make big dents on the scoreboard.
Correct.
And one of the things that frustrates me about the way the game's played these days is you see guys like Arenado and Goldschmidt that are in a lineup, and those guys are home run threats. They're always a threat to hit a home run when they come up. But then when you see another guy come up with the lineup, a second baseman or a center fielder that's not traditionally a home run hitter, you see those guys swinging for the fences and not making the adjustments. And that's when your team turns into a softball lineup. I call it Freddie Patek syndrome. If you guys remember, Freddie Patek played for the Royals, and he was 5'0", 5'4", had the biggest bat on the team. It was a telephone pole that he was swinging at the plate, and he swung from the heels every single time. And he might hit 10 home runs during the course of a season, maybe, but man, he was going to get those 10. And that's what he was playing for. I see a lot of Freddie Pateks in the game.
I think you make a very good point. They do go for the long ball. They're not the only ones. There are other teams that play with that style of baseball as well. But bottom line is, when you don't have the runners on base, when you're not playing the consistent, it's small ball to some extent, but when you're not playing that, bunting, moving your runners, it just makes me ill to see that kind of game disdained for hitting the blasted long ball.
Right.
I agree. And, I think it may be a couple of years before baseball starts to come back to seeing somebody with one of the, 330, 340, 350 batting averages for the course of a season. I think guys are still trying to adjust to the new rules of baseball where there isn't the shift going on. And I think some guys are like, well, now it's a freebie for me, but it's still a matter of using the whole field to play.
That's exactly how you play it. You practice every single level of baseball, and there have been many hitters. Well, Ty Cobb, you go back to him in the early days, he was your quintessential small ball player, but you had so many more, and even up into the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But now it's morphed into the long ball, and in my way of thinking, that doesn't work.
One of my favorite stories about Ty Cobb is, I guess before a game at some point, some reporter asked him some question about Babe Ruth, and he said, why do you care about Babe Ruth so much? And the reporter said, well, he hits home runs. So that game, Ty Cobb got up, hit 3 home runs, and after the game, he ran to the reporter, he goes, there, I hit home runs too. And then he just went back to playing the game the way he always did before.
Because he said, that's not baseball. Yeah. I read that too because I love the history of baseball, and he said home runs are not part of baseball, and that's why he didn't do it. He said anybody can hit home runs. That's easy.
And he used to be a critic of Ruth. They didn't dislike each other. They weren't close friends.
Right.
And
I don't think anybody was a friend of Ty Cobb.
No, they were contemporaries because even though Cobb was a bit older than Ruth, they did play against each other in the 20s. Cobb was in the latter part of his career back then. Ruth was not. And yes, Ty Cobb disdained that level of home runs. That's not the game. That's not how you play it. And to make a little money during World War II, they went on the Babe Ruth Ty Cobb golf tour around the country, and they had head-to-head matches, and they were competitive matches indeed. But that's how they made it work in raising money.
Could you imagine? I'm often a critic of Pete Rose, but could you imagine a guy like Pete Rose playing today? I mean, in this time, what Pete Rose's batting average would be like, especially against the shift, Pete Rose would probably hit over 400.
Yeah. Well, think about him or Tony Gwynn or Cal Ripken Jr., the guys that were pure hitters. Should be. I mean, there should be pure hitters thriving in this environment right now.
They should be, and Rose would have been able to overcome any kind of defensive setup. And he would have bunted. And he would have knocked over the first baseman on the way to bunting.
With an elbow.
Quick question. Let's ask this question. I love doing this as we go into the break. Best hitter you ever saw in your life, Josh?
That I ever saw in my life?
That you saw play, whether TV or at the stadium.
Wow. It's either Pete Rose or Tony Gwynn.
I can't waver at all. Number 24, Willie Mays.
Oh, see, I never got to see him play.
Rod Carew for me.
Ooh, Rod Carew. Yeah, he was awesome.
Come back. We'll tell you what we're going to watch on TV this afternoon. It's Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Well, Ned ruined my TV watching. I was going to go home watch the NBA Finals tonight, but he canceled the game and moved it to Monday night. Yeah, you'll be watching TV live and in person, won't you, tonight?
Well, yeah. When I get home, I'll watch maybe if they play. It looks like a rain up in St. Louis situation, but maybe 15 minutes of that one. Then we go over to Hammons Field because it takes, and this is part of the game. When you do a telecast like this, it takes about 2.5 or 3 hours to get ready for it with lineups and little snippets of what the players are going to do.
Right. All the pregame beverages you have.
Mm-hmm. That's part of it. No pregame beverages. I won't say anything about postgame.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find the game tonight if they want to listen to you?
KYCW 15. This is the Ozark CW that'll be on tonight, and they started at 6. So it'll be a nice evening. I think it's supposed to be clearing off and maybe cooler tonight, which is certainly, I think, comfortable for everybody. But get on out to the game. They're fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Josh? What are you watching on TV today?
I have no idea at this point. I may watch a horror movie or something, or a Western.
We're supposed to say sports even if we're actually not going to watch
sports. A sports movie.
Gonna go home and watch sport. They just did a story on ESPN about the Mighty Ducks. So maybe I'll go home and watch that. So
there you go.
Anyway, when do the hockey playoffs pick up again?
Tuesday.
Yep.
So are they scheduling around each other at this point?
Well, no, they never schedule opposite each other. That's the way.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that they're kind of trying to.
It's all just based on travel because they're traveling too. Because they were in Florida last night and they're back in Vegas on Tuesday, so they give them an extra day of rest, I guess.
That's right.
Well, our schedule's planned. I'm going to go home and watch Ned tonight. Well, listen to Ned tonight.
That's kind of creepy the way he said that.
Well, yeah.
I'm going to go watch Ned tonight.
I'm going to stand out in his bushes
very much if you
and stare at his windows. I'm going to stare. I did that to Mike one time. I said, "I can see you."
Oh,
and he's
wow!
Like, what? And I said, "Yeah, I'm outside staring in your window." And he got up, looked around his house to see. You're really not doing that, are you? No, I'm not really doing that. I'm kidding. So,
that's awesome.
Anyway, thanks, guys. We'll see you next Sunday.
104.7 The Cave.
Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.